Do you think physical therapy has a branding problem?
The short answer is yes.
Not only do we have a branding problem, we have a cost problem.
A lot of my colleagues didn't even know that we had, scholarships accessible to us.
They just didn't know about physical therapy. They'd never heard of it. None of their family members had had physical therapy. And so it wasn't an option as a profession. How we focused on the dollar amount of our scholarships, which is significant compared to any other scholarship that's out there for PT, which DPT students are able to garner up to $14,000 per year.
You don't just say, hey, congratulations, you've gotten the scholarship, so you get all of these things. It's our applicants too.
When we looked at the students that were actually in DPT programs, the number one reason they were dropping out, which we know people of color have the highest dropout in PT school, was also around cost.
And we have over 1,600 people who have applied to our scholarship who are still in our community.
Our vision really is to broaden the reach, the impact, and the accessibility of physical therapy. And the PT workforce right now is a huge issue.
Heidi, you built a multi-million-dollar software company just by filling a gap in the physical therapy documentation space. What's your vision for where you think Rising Tide will go? I'm speaking with a lot of professionals about their transition outside of the clinic into doing really big and impactful things. So, of course, your story, Heidi, has always just fascinated me. We met very briefly just for a selfie that I wanted at APTA. And I've just been thinking about this with Rising Tide. What were some of the things that you saw or heard in response to the writing that you did in response to George Floyd in 2020 that just made you say, this is where Rising Tide should focus? What were some of those responses? I couldn't find that anywhere in my research.
Well, obviously, we had been doing at WebPT, so we had been doing a state of rehab therapy report that we would gather every year. And I think it's now in almost our 15th year doing it, that we would get over 1,000 responses to a set of questions that we would ask, a typical survey. And one of the surveys was just always around, the diversity in the profession and the demographics of the profession. And over that 10 years, although we have seen significant improvement, whether it's, Minority Scholarship Fund with APTA, a lot of focus on it, especially post George Floyd. But the needle really wasn't moving in terms of the number of students who were applying to PT school to really change the diversity of the profession, right? So you got to have a pipeline. And so when we looked at what was the blockers to that pipeline, a lot of it was cost. Second was, I don't see people that look like me. I'm not sure this is the place for me. But more of it was around cost. And when we looked at the students that were actually in DPT programs, the number one reason they were dropping out, which we know people of color have the highest dropout in PT school, was also around cost. And so in having set aside a small amount of endowment to start this scholarship fund, that immediately was what I knew I wanted to do. And so we started off small, but when we did our research in how much the scholarship should be, we looked at the average cost, which, 5 years ago, which I'm so excited we're celebrating our 5 years, our 5th year anniversary, it was approximately $80,000 to $85,000. And so that between that and $100,000, right? And so that was really how we focused on the dollar amount of our scholarships, which is significant compared to any other scholarship that's out there for PT, which our DPT students are able to garner up to $14,000 per year for the years that they're in their DP undergrad. But those were the big crux of it, is the diversity wasn't changing, but also what were the reasons that we couldn't move that needle? And that's what I wanted to start to try to attack.
A little bit of background, I think, is needed because, I'm on X2. I see the backlash against DEI and just even on LinkedIn. And I considered, some of the pushback and some of the comments of just, well, why do we need more diversity in the profession? We need to focus on qualified, highly skilled professionals who can treat anyone. Why focus on just bringing more of, either professionals of color into this space? So what was your response to that in terms of just going forward and saying, no, Rising Tide is really where I want to focus. This is needed, and this is why. What was the why?
Well, to your question, it's a yes and. We have plenty of qualified professionals that just aren't choosing physical therapy as their medical professional path. They're choosing to go to become a physician. They're choosing to become a nurse. They just didn't see a path or didn't even know about physical therapy, to be honest, which is what we hear time and time again through our interview process with our scholarship as we go through our scholarship selection process. They just didn't know about physical therapy. They'd never heard of it. None of their family members had had physical therapy. And so it wasn't an option as a profession. That's one. But two, it's also about, we've talked about for years the 90% problem, that 90% of patients who have a diagnosis that a physical therapist could be of service to help are not getting into CS. And I think we have moved that needle some over the last, 10 to 15 years that we've been pounding this drum. But now, guess what? We have a shortage. So we have an increased volume, but a PT shortage. So again, it is just good business to try to increase the pipeline of PTs of all colors. It doesn't matter. It's really, you have a very large group of individuals that are people of color who choose to go into healthcare. They just aren't choosing to go into PT, and there are significant barriers for them to doing that. And so that's really, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do. We have this large subset of individuals who are highly qualified that just aren't choosing PT. We want them to choose PT. We want them to understand the value, the impact that they can have. And thus, you're actually improving both sides of that coin. Not only are you going to expand the number of patient populations that see someone like them who potentially are going to be attracted to start to come into more preventative care or start to come into care that is non-surgical. And so we want all of that to flourish, which means the entire profession flourishes. You have increased volume of patients and you have the therapists to be able to see them. That is a success story in itself for an industry that needs to continue to grow, that has so much impact to have. And that's the path that we want to try to move forward with Rising Tide.
Heidi, you built a multi-million-dollar software company just by filling a gap in the physical therapy documentation space. What's your vision, just core vision for where you think Rising Tide will go?
It's essentially one bite of the apple at a time, and trying to do exactly what I just said is expand the number of people that understand the value of PT that then can come and receive services from a qualified individual that they can connect with, that they can have great outcomes with, that will continue to perpetuate and grow our industry, whereas to hopefully garner a bigger place in the overall provider continuum that continues to go up the chain to really embrace this primary care alternative in the musculoskeletal space. That's really my vision, is to continue to grow and expand our profession to also somewhat mirror the population of the US that will allow us to attract and continue to grow the patients as well as the provider side.
I was at the National Association for Black Physical Therapists Synergy Summit just a few weeks ago, and that theme of primary care physical therapy was just so visceral. And Valerie, your background from athletic trainer in the sports world to neuro PT, now into pelvic health, where do you see those opportunities for physical therapists to rebrand in primary care?
Well, I think it's important to really paint the picture for the general public and the populations that, to Heidi's point earlier, don't necessarily hear about us, but to really let them know that we are musculoskeletal experts, which means that we can treat the entire body. And I think that that is sometimes a misstep in our education to the general public. And so a part of our I would say a part of our responsibility as PTs is to say, this is what we can do. Here, let me show you, right? And just get that education out there. In doing so, I think that's what is going to then spark the idea, hey, I'm having back pain. And instead of reaching for this prescription or going to the emergency room and spending tens of thousands of dollars on, testing, I can actually just go see my PT because my PT will know how to treat this. And I think we know that we can do that, but it's so important to continue to educate and continue to do, free master classes and free webinars and just get the education out there. I think that that's why I'm really inspired by what you're doing, Dr. Seagraves, in sharing how to improve outcomes with C-section recovery in acute space, right? People aren't necessarily doing that, nor do people know that that is an option that they can call on a physical therapist to help them with.
Yeah, absolutely. I found that it couldn't be done without media. And it couldn't be done without explaining it to the bare minimum. My youngest patient, I've been speaking publicly about this, was 13 years old after C-section, right? So just walking into the room and seeing Disney on, I'm just like, we have to change even the way that we're speaking about this.
Yeah.
Do you think physical therapy has a branding problem?
The short answer is yes. I think that our beginnings were helping individuals post a war, right? And that's how our entire profession began. And then I think we became very well highlighted in the athletic space and the sports space. And I think that we have an opportunity to rebrand ourselves for younger generations as more holistic providers because we do treat the physical body, yes. And being a neuro specialist and working in pelvic health, I know that this is not just a physical body issue. Usually things are not just physical body issues, but they span the entire mental health space, emotional health space, etc. So I think that we do have an opportunity as providers to rebrand ourselves as more holistic in nature. And I also have to highlight the fact that we have Rising Tide scholars and applicants who are so passionate about doing just that. They are really passionate about one, serving underserved communities, two, making sure that people in their communities know about physical therapy and know that we treat more than just one aspect of the human body.
You know, your $14,000, was it a year or a year of PT school? That was the exact amount of a scholarship that I got. I couldn't have gone to PT school, completed, a degree, and then graduate without any debt had it not been for that support. But even by way of knowing about that support, a lot of my colleagues didn't even know that we had, scholarships accessible to us. What's the marketing for Rising Tide to get out to more people?
Well, it's no different than what you talked about. It's media, social media, getting out there in person. It's all the traditional places, going to CSM, starting word of mouth, hosting a happy hour that we do every year at CSM and attracting more and more students. But it's also going directly to every single one of the universities that have DPT programs and letting them know about this scholarship. In year one, we had 70 applicants. Today, we're upward of 500 applicants for 20 spots. And so the word is out. We are able to provide scholarships to both first years and rising second year students. And so that expands our ability. It's not just those incoming DPT students. We do allow applications from those rising second years. And we've had some folks that, didn't quite meet the mark in their very first year, but they've come back and applied the second year. So it's always great to hear from them and see the amazing progress that they are achieving. But also, I will say that not only do we have a branding problem, we have a cost problem right now in our industry. The cost of education is prohibitive to what you can actually, like the salaries, and it's not commensurate right now. And we really need to do something about this because it's going to continue to limit and create this disparity and shortage of PTs that is going to not allow us to continue to grow and do what we've talked about in terms of expand our reach, expand the accessibility of our profession. And so we hear time and time again, and it breaks my heart, not only just insecurity about where's my tuition going to come from, but housing, food insecurity, housing insecurity. I mean, we've heard about students who, in the summer, because there's a gap between when they are in school and, going off to their clinical, they're living in their cars for a couple of weeks because their housing, a situation has to change. And so there's this, they don't want to pay for 2 or 3 weeks, or they can't afford to pay for 2 or 3 weeks in this gap time, selling plasma to get food. I mean, it's horrific to hear some of these stories, and it breaks our heart. It just further fuels our mission and what we're trying to accomplish. But at the same time, it's like the bigger problem that we need to solve here. And another reason more and more students are starting to turn away, and the applicant numbers are significantly going down, not only just in PT, but in healthcare in general. We can't continue to say that we value health and want to have longevity of humans if we continue to increase the cost of healthcare education, provider education. And so it's a big deal right now, and I hope and I know that there are changes that are happening in the universities and programs that provide DPT schools in terms of shortening some of the programs. But it's a problem that needs to be solved, and it needs to be solved quickly.
One of the things that caught my attention, I think, really about Rising Tide, Heidi, just to be frank, was that you were behind it. I said, if this is an entrepreneur who's already built a successful company and she's created now this scholarship opportunity, I'd want to learn from her, because my salary as a PT could not even support me, and I graduated from PT school without any debt. And so I needed to go the business route to supplement my income. I needed to get into media, and I needed to get into education. So I'm completely like appalled, when I do hear those stories of PT students sleeping in their car just between clinicals, and especially our hybrid students. I mean, you think that it's a cost savings, but hybrid students are paying almost as much as the residential students who are actually leaving their homes and moving closer to universities. And so now, when you're behind Rising Tide, do you see that there's now this opportunity to even train students in business education and in ways of actually investing so that their salary is not the only thing that's carrying them, that they're able to actually generate several streams of income?
Well, from the beginning, and thank you for asking that question, because it's the holistic approach, as Valerie mentioned, that is our approach as well. It's one thing to just be a check writer, which was never the intention of just being a check writer. We know there's so much more to it that will allow our students to become successful. And to your point earlier of the disparity or just difference, I don't know if it's a disparity, it's just a difference. The majority of the students that we get in our application process, and even our scholarship winners, are first-time college goers. They don't have a lot of support behind them. They're figuring this out as they go along. And the mentorship necessity, these additional educational enrichment that we're surrounding our students with, is really what is, I think, even through our interviews, this process, because of word of mouth. It's so funny. We always ask a need question in our interview process. And so many of them have now heard about us that they talk more about the wraparounds that they will get and that they've read on our website and the testimonials that people have said, than they even talk about their need to get financial support for their tuition. It's been astonishing, actually, this year. To hear that they want to have the networking capabilities, they want to be part of our community in which they can connect with other students that look like them, that are going through similar situations that they can feed off of each other, support each other, cheer each other on. They want the additional education that we provide on a monthly basis, to have speakers and people like you who are in the field, who are doing it, who are of notable stature in the profession, that look like them, that have stories they can see themselves in. And then, bringing the likes of Valerie on to help also expand our ability to, once they get to a place where they're starting to look for a job, that we can then support them in having our Employer Connect program where they can find a position in an organization, in a company that we have vetted to say, I'm going to belong here. I'm going to feel comfortable here. And I'm going to have the ability to continue to grow in my capacity of leadership or clinical skills or whatever it may be, because no, we know this is going to be a soft landing and a right fit for you. It's all of the wraparound things that I think actually is sometimes even more valuable to the students than just the tuition support.
Mm-hmm. And I want to jump in with that too, because one of the things that I express to anyone who is interested in partnering with Rising Tide, that is my favorite aspect of it is, yes, as Heidi said, it's not just the financial support, but it's also the networking and the career development. And we don't just say, hey, you, congratulations, you've gotten the scholarship, so you get all of these things. It's our applicants too. So right now we're in our 5th year, and we have over 1,600 people who have applied to our scholarship who are still in our community. They are affectionately known as our PT Pod, and we provide monthly webinars for these individuals on these specialty topics to get more mentorship, to get more learning on this, to support what they're learning in PT school. And they get a chance to come to our CSM networking event and connect with scholars and also industry leaders. And so I think what is special and unique about Rising Tide is it is truly outreach. It's truly reaching out to the individuals who are absolutely well deserving. I mean, we set a high bar and they knock it over. They are just exceptional. And so we just are happy and willing to support them in any way that we can through the networking and career development and things like that.
Question
And
for you. Yeah, please.
just really quick, just it's a lot about crowdsourcing too. We ask them, what do you want to learn? What do you think that you need to be successful? So we've provided education on financial literacy, for example. We know that they have a ton of student debt. Like, how do I manage that? What are some options? How do I think about this? Because too often people get taken advantage of when they don't have that kind of education. They find themselves in loans that they're going to have a very difficult time paying off because of high interest rates, things like that. And so that was one of them. Another one is, yeah, it's great to go to these conferences and other things, but how do I even start to network? What does networking mean? A lot of students have never even done that. And so that's another, we brought in a speaker who that's what they do. And that's what they're very good at it. And so lots of tips and tricks. How do I get my LinkedIn looking shiny and new? How do I become attractive? And how do I create a social media presence and start to get followers? Like, all of these things, seem sometimes like a normal path for many who might have others to lean on who can help teach them, but we're that sort of support system, that underpinning for their success that they're turning to just as a resource for the success of all these students.
I was going to say I had to pay for that kind of knowledge. I had no idea that Rising Tide gave so many resources, even on LinkedIn. And that profile, I think, has probably netted me the biggest return on my investment. And without LinkedIn, it was the first time I was paid $900 just to write a blog, and it was just one. And with my expertise as a physical therapist and what I do, and that's the word that I want to get out to students, is that there are these non-clinical roles just by way of your profession that you're going to really be able to step to serve in. And that's what I want to know. My final question for you both is, where have you seen Rising Tide scholars branch off into? Whether it's in the profession, you've connected them with positions, which is phenomenal after they graduate. But what other areas have your scholars branched off into, and what's the future for other scholars? What does that look like?
Valerie, I'm going to let you start.
Sure, sure. One of my favorite stories, I guess, is one of our scholars decided to go off to New York and work at a production company, being the physical therapist for the theater in New York and Broadway. That in itself is amazing. And this scholar also is truly supportive of Rising Tide and wholeheartedly wants to give back to the community. This scholar has completely paid off their loans, which is like the dream. And so we're not only proud of his business acumen in just utilizing all of his resources and networks to get to that point, but also we're just so proud of his heart in wanting to give back to Rising Tide in that. And so I think that just exemplifies the type of scholars that we choose, the type of candidates that are out there who are just, like I said earlier, well deserving and exceptional. And so we have many other stories about our scholars who are very similar, who are just doing incredible things, not only for themselves and for their legacy, their wealth, their family, but also for generations to come.
Yeah, she's speaking of Ricky Lochi, who is a Northwestern grad, was a dual major in both public health and had got his doctorate at the same time. Just an outstanding student who was actually running his own personal training business on the side all the way through PT school, which is partly how he was able to pay off and has continued to grow that and landed this amazing job in New York City and is thriving, getting promotions already in his second year. I mean, this is the caliber of student that we're talking about. But if you, in his humbleness, you listen to him to speak, it is so much about giving back. Another student or recent graduate of ours, we have both scholarships for DPT students, and we also do scholarships for residency programs. We have quite a number of students that are now going on to residency, because they can afford it, because they have had this support through their DPT program and now are able to think about becoming more specialized in their residency. But she is a doula, Bridget Achuko, who has been also very prominent in social media as well, and is now going to work with one of our employer connect companies, Movement X, which is a company that is definitely on the bleeding edge of doing some great things with cash-based services, as well as, really focusing on regional communities. And so she's another one we're super proud of. But I mean, you left and right, like, we have one of our students, Kyrus Coleman, who's also a surge caller, who's working in the NFL. He works for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I could go on and on. We have students on the West Coast who are just killing it in the clinics and getting promotions to leadership roles very quickly. Lena is one of our outstanding students as well, and she started a book club within our community. And has been leading our book club just organically. And this is what we're trying to do within the community now, is a lot more organic leadership opportunities that then allow them to hone some of their own skills in, reaching out to this group, giving accountability to them. Example, in the book club, each, every couple of months, leading the conversation. Like, all of these things are honing skills that they sometimes think it's just fun, but are really honing their leadership skills as they go through it. Like, I don't know, we could spend hours, Rebecca. I want to name all of our students, because I also think, like, I want to just get back to what you said. You had to do all of these non-clinical things to make more money. And to me, that's not what any of us went to DPT school for, or PT school, because it wasn't a DPT when I went through school. I went to PT school because I wanted to become a clinician. I wanted to put my hands on patients. I wanted to do the things that I saw of what inspired me to become a physical therapist. That someone, for me, it was because I had an injury myself, and that's what inspired me to want to do that for others. And that is what people enter PT school for. And I want them to truly have the ability to become great clinicians and hopefully continue to get paid well enough to make a living, pay off their loans, and feel good about choosing this profession in the future of being excellent clinicians, and then expanding off into doing what perhaps other things that they might be able to do alongside of that.
It's interesting that you say that, Heidi. And Valerie, you'll appreciate this being in your background in neuro and having worked at Mass General. I mean, I can't imagine, right? 3 months before I actually started PT school, my mother had a massive stroke. And that was before PT school. So I was excited about the profession. I was excited just that I got accepted into PT school, first of all. And that one experience, which I mean, it completely upended our lives as a family, that one experience showed me so much about the healthcare system that there were several times in PT school I didn't think I would graduate. I failed practicals. I struggled with just the content, the focus, and the energy that it took. And I realized I didn't want to graduate into this profession the way it was. I'd already seen that side of it as a family member. 24 hours before her stroke, she was at an ortho clinic where the PT was seeing three other patients, never took her vital signs, never monitored her blood pressure. So I do that now, I think, in my own world that I've created for maternal health to just educate not just clinicians, but to students coming into the profession is you're coming into a profession it needs a rework. You're coming into a profession where you're going to have to engineer the type of model of care that you want to practice in. And so, just to go along with that, Heidi, I mean, I would say that, yeah, people probably don't want to, also have a side hustle, build a business. They want to really just graduate and get right into the field. But with physical therapy, we're such a young profession that we can't operate the way that other professions do. We can't operate as personal trainers where we're seeing multiple patients and we're not really paying attention to the ones who really need our undivided attention in that moment, that would really need us to take their vital signs so that they're not at risk. And it sounds like you're creating a community where those students are so competitively showing that they're seeing the landscape and they're seeing the opportunities that can be created.
We're trying to educate them to see that landscape, right? To see a more realistic landscape. I commend anyone who wants to do and everyone who wants to do pro bono work. But pro bono work doesn't mean that everything comes for free. Like, someone's got to do the work, right? And someone's got to provide a facility and someone's got to provide supplies and all of those things. And, overwhelmingly, that is probably one of the number one things students, because of what you just said, that they know they've seen a family member struggle and then not go because they couldn't afford it. And so the immediate sort of side to that is, well, I'm going to provide free services, not understanding truly like what goes into being able to provide and who is able to provide pro bono services, right? And so it's the reality of business, to what you started this part of this conversation about, of understanding the business side of PT. How do you get paid? What should you expect to get paid? Where are the options in the field that perhaps pay more, or if this is your avenue to do that, the fact that we have direct access, the fact that we do have cash-based services. And I'll just, challenge you on the personal trainer thing. The reason that personal trainers see people one-on-one, but what do? They charge $150 to do that. And they don't have doctorate degrees. Why aren't we doing that and more? Right? And so, I think that there's a culture, there's a brand, all of the things that you started this conversation with that definitely need an overhaul. And that's what we're trying to truly not only get them to understand, because they're coming in feeling like they're already less than. How do you get them to baseline and then show them an avenue that you can be more, that you can add value in a way and command those kinds of potential with the expertise that they have, that kind of value from your customers, your patients.
So we talked about the benefits to the profession of just diversifying the landscape, of bringing more well and highly qualified professionals to physical therapy. We talked about the benefits for even students, that Rising Tide is offering. What are the benefits to the burned out clinicians in our field, or even the organizations that you're partnering with? Like, what's the benefit for this fresh energy that you're bringing through Rising Tide, or for organizations and professionals who want to partner with you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in on that because I think that the best ideas are usually brought by those fresh perspectives. Someone who can have a 30,000-foot view, or someone who is maybe just new to an organization and sees, hey, this aspect could be a little bit better. Let me see if I can help tweak it here and there. I'll give myself as an example. Fresh out of PT school, I was working at MedStar Health, who is actually one of our partners with Employer Connect. And as a new grad, I said, hey, I would really love to see a mentorship program here, and I would love to help build it out. So using my organizational skills, I developed this mentorship program for new grads, and it was specific to my clinic. But now, flash forward, I'm in this role and speaking to the recruiter who brought me on as a new grad. And I'm speaking to him as a partner with Rising Tide. And he's telling me about this amazing network wide mentorship program that they have now. Does that have anything to do with mine? Maybe, maybe not. But my point is that I think that bringing in fresh, new, innovative, creative individuals is only going to benefit organizations. That's studied in organizational development, right? So I think we have to be smart business people and really utilize the strengths that these individuals are coming in with. And I will say also, these individuals who are coming in now have such resilience. They are at this point, but they've also gone through a pandemic during the most pivotal points in their educational careers. So I think that we could also take a moment to learn a little bit of something from them in that regard as well.
Absolutely. First, you, Heidi, I want to land with this in terms of just really what you're looking for in the organizations that you do want to partner with. What do you want to know from clinicians like me, or what do you want us to know so that we can support you, so that we can join on this mission that you have and be part of your community and get people excited about physical therapy as a profession? How can we help?
Well, there's many ways that anyone can help. First and foremost, we want our scholarships to go on in perpetuity. So we do have a donation page, and every dollar counts towards pushing that part of the mission forward. And alongside of that, we talked about all of the educational enrichment components. We do offer monthly webinars, and we ask for speakers who might be interested. If you have a specific area of expertise in your career, so whether it's a specialty or non-clinical work, if you are a specialist in leadership or career development, things like that, anything you can help to continue to support our students in that way. We're also looking for mentorships. Valerie mentioned her mentorship program that we're starting to develop. So if that's of interest to anyone who would like to be paired with students to help them along their way, we are open and willing to take names and put names on our mentorship list, because to me, that's probably one of the most impactful things for individuals to take part in, when you really feel that connection to students. We also bring all of our scholars to Phoenix annually for an in-person conference, and we host a big dinner in which they can network and meet each other and really connect on a personal level on a Friday night. And then we do an all-day educational sessions with them on Saturday. So we have a list of speakers, but we'd love to continue to add to that speaker list, where you can, again, meet students in person. And I can just tell you, Valerie can vouch. I can vouch for Valerie on this. She was one of our speakers, I think, in our second or third year, and fell in love so much with what we're doing that just raised her hand and say, how do I get involved? I want to come work for you. I want to work with these students. And so, with open arms, we brought Valerie in, and she's just been had such an amazing impact just in the first year that she's been with Rising Tide. So, and then finally, I'll just say, and Valerie, you can expand on this because this is your area of expertise in the foundation, is our Employer Connect program. So we're looking for organizations who want to partner with us and be on our job board to really provide an opportunity for these students to have career development and to be that first place that they land in the profession and hopefully have a place where they're going to feel like they belong and they want to continue on with this profession. To your point of burnout, like that's the hardest thing. You jump into an organization and get thrown 3 patients an hour right out of the gate. That's probably not the best way to nurture and continue with supporting and wanting longevity in our profession. So there's so many ways to get involved, and we invite anyone and everyone who might be interested in learning more to reach out to us. You can reach out at info@rising-tide.com, and that's with a Z. And Valerie, anything else you want to add?
We're just super open. So please, if you have any inkling that you want to do something with Rising Tide, please reach out because we will hop on a call and just explain these options a little bit more and see what's the best fit, because it can be a lot, but we are just open and really ready to help support this wave of the new generation. So please join us.
And Rebecca, thank you so much for having us on to really discuss a lot about this. You know, our vision really is to broaden the reach, the impact, and the accessibility of physical therapy. And by starting with this part of advancing inclusive excellence in the PT workforce, and the PT workforce right now is a huge issue. And so we are really trying to promote and push having warm bodies to fill these positions, to cut down on the wait lists of patients that we know a lot of practices are having to deal with right now. And so to your point earlier of how do we impact more with, especially around having people of color, having these underrepresented students get into the profession. Right now, I don't think people necessarily care what and who they look like as long as they are excellent therapists. And so if you have the opportunity to have your first person of color join your practice and having that experience of dealing and having a diverse workforce within your practice, what an excellent way to sort of broaden everyone's horizon to say, wow, this is unique, and not only that, but beneficial to my business and to the patient population that I want to see in my practice.